All right, coming to you live from my dining room. Gonna have a little breakfast while I do this particular sketch. So for this one, I have opened up an old sketch that I did that I put basically in a folder that I call my garbage sketches folder. And it's all the ALS files or project files from other DAWs that basically just were just don't sound that great to me. And sometimes, I'll open them up and just start. I have a few tricks up my sleeve for kind of remixing them really quickly to a point where they can, sound like something decent-ish. But I like that exercise of trying to take garbage and sort of sculpt it into something manageably okay. So I've got my, set my limits here. I've got my processor actually set down all the way to 0. So that'll limit my the amount of CPU use I'm allowed to use, which, I'm probably the only one on the planet that will actually do this kind of crazy limit technique. And got about an hour and 22, looks like 80% battery power. So let's see how much we can get done within those confines. Okay, let's have a listen to this garbage sketch. Yeah, immediately it sounds, just kind of kludgy and aimless. There's definitely some good stuff, good potential in there. Just like any sound, you can sort of sculpt it and shape it with EQs and volume shapers and turn it into something actually worth using. But that can take a bit of energy, and oftentimes that's just not the route to go, especially if you're needing more, I guess, positive affirmation or instant gratification. Oftentimes it's just best to leave those project files in the quote-unquote garbage folder. So one thing I like to do is just kind of mute stuff, just to get a sense of, like, or soloing the channels to see what is going on in each one. Like this one immediately sounds interesting to me from an ambient drone standpoint. Yeah, this one is just, in this context, not that interesting. Obviously, we can start tweaking the individual parameters for each track and try to see if we can finesse or finagle. I like to use, like for tracks that have sounds like this one that's just kind of incessant. I like to take an auto pan and I'll go ahead and right click and pull it down and save this as my default preset. Next time I double click and load on the auto pan, I've got this exact setup. So I want a bit of an off rhythm fading in and out, and the tremolo, 2 of them together with slightly different rates is a good way to get that effect. Yeah, this thing is killing me also. Maybe we'll just turn this one off for now. Identifying sort of the problem areas and addressing those first is usually how I like to tackle coming back to an old sketch that needs a lot of help. One thing I also love to do is kind of make a drastic switch up. We'll call this group effects. And you'll see what I mean here in a second by drastic. I'm going to use the gate sidechain from my group. Let us set the out to send only and pull the sound from there. So now we have siphons sound from our group using this sidechain audition function. I'm probably the only one that uses it in this way. Well, there's probably more. 7 billion people on this planet. Sure, there's more people using the sidechain audition in this funky way. So anyway, yeah, I'm just going to basically run effects, this whole group through effects. I'll turn this off so we can free up some CPU. Yeah, this hamster or guinea pig chirp sound also is so incessant. I think that's part of building up a good composition or sketch that can later be a good composition, is figuring out how to limit certain sounds so they only happen ever so often. I really kind of feel like most sounds can be useful in a lot of contexts as long as they're not overused. Maybe this sound, if we were to make a 5-minute piece out of this whole thing, this sound here, this chirp, would only be good, to be played just a small handful of times across the whole track. I don't know. It's hard to say until you actually track it out. And I think we'll get to that point in some other sketches where we actually do take some of these things and try and record them out here. And different ways we can do that. There's a million ways, 6 million ways from Sunday to set up and record and build up sketches, from sketches to the timeline. Okay, so back to my original thought of, I'm going to and I had this idea the other day of what would it sound like with a vocoder if we pulled the external modulation or carrier source from, let's see. Yeah, from the group here. It's a nice underwatery kind of. I really love the vocoder in certain ways. It can just be really lush and sort of alien sounding. I almost want to hear what this will sound like. Fascinating. Definitely something. So part of the reason why we routed everything into this group effects is so that we can have these MIDI clips here with automation for the effects inside of it. Because unfortunately in Ableton groups, you cannot have dummy clips. So any effects on a group channel, you can only automate over here in the timeline, which, for most intents and purposes, for most artists, that's probably enough. But for me, I like to have more control and more generative options. Because obviously when you're making a sketch, and especially when you're making a song, so, you have to listen to what you're doing over and over and over again. And I do really feel like as much generative stuff as you can inject in there, the better, because it'll just stay a little bit more fresh for longer. And that is a trick to taking a song from start to finish, is making it interesting enough along the way for you so that you don't get totally sick of it. Obviously, that's a part of becoming, I think, a mature artist, is learning how to, really create something initially that you can fall in love with, and being able to, throughout, especially the end stages of a song where you have to, gosh, listen to it over and over with, you know, different systems, and you know, you to learn how to basically not totally get burnt out and sick of your album or your songs that way is really a really important trick to get down. So as interesting as you can make it for yourself initially, the better, in my opinion. So generative stuff helps, and that's why I love to sort of route into, you know, from the master into these synths, as we've seen in other sketches, or from return tracks into these sort of like, you know, middle ground, middleman, whatever, MIDI track synth, and with clips. And so I've got 3 clips here set up with follow actions to sort of play randomly from one to the next. In fact, I want to go ahead and add, let's just add another, because the more you put in there, the more I guess sort of random and generative ultimately it's going to sound. And I wanted to go ahead and just animate some stuff. Let's see, let's go ahead and turn on you can see the knobs are kind of jerking around, and that's occurring anytime a new clip is randomly selected to play. But we can just hold, and as long as we're moving a knob, it's recording into whatever the current clip that's playing in the random series is. It's recording into that clip. One of my favorite go-to techniques for generative sort of random this operator thing is still so repetitive. I think it's this one, or is it this one? Yeah. I think we could add a grain delay maybe, and just pitch it way down. Yeah, starting to sound really warbly and alien-like. Let's try just playing with the bands here. I really wish I could automate these band levels on the vocoder. Seems like every plugin I run across, there's always something I think of that I want to change about it, improve with it. So that's the problem with being an artist, you know, that thinks too much. You know, I think at this point, you know, hearing this, I really like this, what's going on here, and it would obviously be with, you know, using 50% or more of our CPU, a good idea to just sort of mix down into a looper. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to see how far I can take it. I think for most practical purposes, you know, you would just mix a ton of stuff like this down and maybe start working from those wave files. That's another constraint challenge that I like to give to myself is, you know, what's the least amount or the most you can do with the least amount of samples? Samples are for pussies. No, actually, in most of all my my songs, I use a lot of samples, a lot of field recordings. You know, it's very ambient kind of music, and a lot of guitar or acoustic sources. So I'm not one to talk. I love samples, and maybe because I use them so much in my normal everyday process, when I sketch, I like to try the constraint of, you know, how much can you do without them? But at some point when writing a song, you do have to, you know, especially a generative song, by the end, you do have to kind of commit down or print down, just because when you're trying to, obviously master, obviously it's going to be hard to master when, you've got things firing off at random here and there. Let's see. Yeah, maybe I want to. Cool. So now would be a good time, I think, to add in, maybe another layer that could possibly, I mean, I've got this idea for this rhythmic structure in my head, but again, trying to get ideas out of your head and actually sounding like you want them. It's a huge push-pull, and in the end, a lot of compromise, and it takes a lot of patience. I think we're kind of around the C sharp area zone. Right. I kind of want a thing to happen right after that swell ends. But I don't know what that thing I want is. Maybe some kind of burst or pop or stab or... So first we need to separate out the second operator instance. Okay. Yeah, almost too much resonator happening there. Resonator is it's a love-hate for me. It can sound really obvious, like as an effect, just like the flanger, can be just really obvious. It takes a lot of, subtle finagling to make it sound unique. It all depends on the context, where you put it. I think where you put it in the chain of effects, and how much automation you end up. First, I kind of imagine this happening in a large space. Where am I going with all this? I think for this one, I wanted to do just like a white noise. Kind of burst situation. we'll have this happen here. We'll pull one of these here. I think for this clicky click, I definitely need to get I need a lot more. Oops. More lamb. Whoops. Whoops. Interesting-ish. Now we got to figure out ways to make these a bit more generative, so that it's not, you know, the exact same pattern every time. I think definitely was hearing more of like a white noise. Something or the other. This one. Real loud and heavy-handed, but I think we can tame that. I do, with operator, really wish there was the option for a separate filter for each of the 4 voices. Oh man, that would be super amazing. Obviously you can group and have as many operators going down the line as you want, but it would just be really cool to have more filters in there. I guess I could just try to build that with Max Real Live. Okay, so we're sticking with this 6 length, and I think I want to, so if I duplicate this a bunch of times, and then I unlink this and use a multiple of 6, so say like 6 times 4 times 5 is 30, 6 times 6, 36, and then I could, you know, modulate some of these. It's still, you know, as far as generative music goes, not the most it takes a little bit of time, and it's, you know, it's not the most effective as far as generative goes, because it's, you're still, you know, getting that, you know, every 6 bars kind of sound. So obviously we can try and add some effects into this. Okay, so this is the bass. I do kind of like what adding a tremolo to the bass kind of just, you know, has a nice little amplitude modulation, an amplitude modulation feel to it. I can't talk this morning. So I apparently need more coffee. Okay, so I'm going to engage my clip, the automation recording. right, let's check out that. So, looks healthy enough to me. Cool. So, one thing I need to do is set under record warp launch, create fade on clip edges. Start playback with record. Recording on scene launch. Record session automation in ARM tracks only. I like to keep this on all tracks. And that way, I don't have to have this record mode set in order to use this. I obviously get in a lot of trouble because I forget that this is on, as you've noticed before. But it's just all a part of the ridiculousness of and impromptu-ness of this. Let's see. Of this sketching thing, hi-hat-ish. All right, so we've got this clicky click thing. It's happening on, looks like D1. I'm going to create a little note filter. Let's see, choices 1. Well, let's see, we are at what? D1, D sharp 1. Okay, so what this is saying is that D sharp 1, this clicky click, when it hits this random, the chances of it playing one note via this choice here, one note above, you can see it's 0 is basically letting D sharp 1 through. And as I increase this chance, it'll play up one note, so that would be E1. And in this pitch MIDI effect, I have set the lowest note to be D sharp 1 in the range to 0. So if any other note other than D sharp 0 hits this pitch MIDI effect, it won't let it through. So essentially we're just sort of stripping out notes based on this chance here. It's a little combination of Ableton MIDI effects that I use so often, real simple generative. Maybe I'll decrease this. Okay. So many ideas. Can't even make up my mind where to go with them all. Let's see. I'm going to try pitching down this hi-hat-ish kind of thing. Let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, somewhat gritty, although I think if we rendered this out at 192 or 96 even, we get much better resolution out of the grain delay. That's been my experience with it. So we've got a viable minimal ambient kind of atmosphere happening here. Let's pull this particular automation off of the grid a little bit. And this one, I think we want to bring it in a little bit. And I think for this clicky click thing, I'm gonna, for the most part, now that I'm hearing this, I kind of want, I guess, these first few to have more of a chance of playing. So in this case, I'm not going to pull this modulation off the grid. Since it's modulation, I think I need to delete that, turn off this. I could probably play with the attack of this melodic layer. I like it when it's kind of a short stab. Be nice for every now and then it kind of depart from that. I'm also curious what different pitches will sound like with this melodic. Okay, I can live with that. So I think just every now and then we're gonna have this one drop down 3. Maybe white noise in there, perhaps. Cool. And I'm also hearing potential for other rhythmic elements to exist. So I am almost curious if I pull these out from this group, what that will end up sounding like. I almost like this filter sort of tuned a little bit. I think what we could do is also add that same kind of note filter that I was messing with over here. This note stripper outer. Definitely different from a note stripper. That's a whole other thing there. Let's see. So what is our note here? It's looking like C1. So we shall set our lowest here to, I need to turn off that, C1. Yeah. I think this is also C1, cool. Right now we've got like a 50-50 chance, and you can see it jumping from the note that's going to be let through here. So every time this 0 lights up, you can see this one lighting up, meaning a note is passing through, and every time it goes +1, the note does not get to go through. So we can pull this chance down. You know, and if we really wanted to take it, you know, into some, I guess, more beat-oriented territory, there's always the option of dropping in a kind of kick. Curious what this kick will sound like. I like this one here, which allows this C and D to be their own separate. And let's try to. With some white noise. Okay, I can get down with this white noise coming in only almost kind of an industrial feel to it. Let's see what happens when I drop in a compressor and sidechain from the kick. Maybe I'll put the sidechain here so the tail can continue through this grain delay. More accurately, tonal drone. And I'm curious what a chorus will sound like. I'm always so curious what different things will sound like, and I not that everyone should be that curious, but I do think it makes it fun to just kind of keep your mind open to like, what would this crazy thing sound like? Like if we split this out into a left and right separation, balance left, left, and then we do a right one. And of course, you know, I really want to automate all this, but we've got a group here and we can't have dummy clips on our group. So spatter effects, we'll just call this one spatter, and move the effects into here. And like I did earlier, we'll go ahead and set this to sends only and grab ourselves a gate. We could also use a compressor if we wanted to, whatever has that sidechain functionality and that lets us audition this sidechain. And from spatter, no, not from spatter effects. That would create a crazy feedback loop. Voila, okay. Now I can have, actually I'll just go ahead and pull these over here. So ready to go follow actions. And start moving these around. All right, that's that side. Let's do this side. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this wet dry here, map it for both of them on the same knob. So essentially we have a wet and dry for this whole racket. Cool. One out. Now, sometimes a little most of the time I like the fade mode on the delay, but sometimes that repitch has, especially with high-end stuff, can give you some nice liquidy sounding. Okay, so now that I've had a chance to sort of sit with this kick, I think I want to add in a multi-band. Yeah, I guess I could just use the multi-band dynamics. Not on the splatter effects. We want this on our rhythm section. And let's go ahead and grab the sidechain from our kick. And I only want, I think, the bass to be sidechain down. Anytime that kick hits our bass, you know, they're not competing too much. Oh, interesting. Wasn't expecting a beep to come out of the phaser, but I guess with enough feedback, there you go. So I think I must have done something. Hold on, because I'm not sure where that beep is coming from now. Obviously from here. Did I change the pitch somehow or the transpose? Our note C1. Huh. Interesting. So we're not going to get our white noise to come through without this because we have it set to this mode. So maybe there's a different mode. Definitely want these first two, A and B, to be affecting each other. But do we have an A and B? So maybe this one. Not exactly what I was hoping for. I might be able to, let me just try to group this and see if I can switch between these patterns here. Aha, very nice. Let's try that. Algorithm switch. Well, I kind of like what's happening there. I mean, it's a bit, you know, I have to be very sparing with this erosion because it can sound very obvious very quick. Sometimes just subtle amounts of it, like this sine added to a very high frequencies only. Yeah, I'm also curious what happens if I add in let's go ahead and get some volume. on the velocity there. Okay, so I can go ahead and duplicate this, and I add different patterns here because I was liking a lot of some of these. And actually, I think I want to take a different approach to this whole. I think we definitely want our two. Here, I'm going to add a secondary. There's a couple of ways we could do this. Obviously, I could add a second MIDI clip here, and route the MIDI back into this, and so it can sort of do its own thing separately, not be locked inside of this clip either. I think that's the approach I'll take for this. Now, route this to kick thing. So we'll call this Alt 1. Alt 2. I'll just have it be one of these. Alt 3. Like that triplet there. Four, and I think I'll have a clip up here that is just empty. Blank, and then follow actions. And I think for these, I want to have them jump back to the first and give the first one a follow action of play any other than itself. But I think I also want to have a ratio of 2 to 1, so it'll play itself again twice before. Well, I think you get the math there. So that way we're not constantly playing our alts here. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. And we can just keep adding to these alts and have like different rhythm patterns. And we can also increase this to be like 2 and this to be 3 so that the ratio is a little bit, jumps to the alts a little bit more versus the blank just replaying itself. Cool. Now, where is my drum bus? So maybe almost too much on this high pitch thing. So we can just automate this here. Frequency. Okay. I think I'll just hold down shift and sort of drag out that empty space there. Cool. And this one is feeling a bit weighted to the left, so also wanted to see what it would sound like with just a high pass. It has that tighter, minimal sound to it. We have all these. The only problem with having this technique here is that, you know, if you want to draw in something custom, you gotta do it to all the clips. Otherwise, you know, just turn on your button there and then start dragging around. Some fun, interesting rhythmic structures happening. Whoops. Go ahead and just delete that. For our kick, we can also add a bit of all kinds of crap. All right, looks like we're about to end this one. Oh, hey, hi, Resolume. Love that app. And once you start, you know, controlling some of these parameters via MIDI from Ableton, you can really start to do some really awesome, crazy stuff that syncs right up to your music. So yeah, that's one thing I love to do. It takes a bit of setup, but you know, it definitely is worth it in the end for getting some really interesting sounding or interesting looking visuals. So I use looks like this computer doesn't have it. Loop BE. It's a free MIDI siphon. You can just send MIDI from one app to the next in Windows. I know on Macs it's like inter-app audio or something like that. It's so much easier and better on a Mac, but yeah, Loop BE works really well too for PC. Yeah, kind of like this this pitch down with a wet dry of 50%. It's almost like an alternate layer. Yeah, kind of interesting a little bit. I'd obviously love to be able to automate some of this. You know, we could set that up. We could send a routing from the master into, maybe I'll just do that as like a last thing to do here on this track. But I kind of like it. It's like, you know, I got that industrial ambient sort of minimal. All right, so I need to group this audio through. And let's see, we'll mute this. I am going to pull audio from, it's always a bit of finagling. Since only, we'll call this master effects. We're going to pull audio from this group using the gate effect and the audition on the sidechain. Call this, pull it from master, post audio through, let's do post effects. Or, yeah, post effects, okay. Let's see, we've got some audio coming through there. But we're not getting any, we need to turn on sidechain, that always helps. So now we got audio from the master. And I think we need to pull audio from our master effects, essentially bypassing this audio through, which we have muted there. So a little squirrely. Okay, master effects. Go ahead and just, yeah, looks like it's coming through okay. Let's hope we don't get any feedback loop. Looks like everything worked. Cool. Now we've got our dry wet here. I'm gonna bypass the dry wet on the grain delay with this group preset that I've made for here, and it's just so much smoother sounding in my opinion. So let's go ahead and copy over our existing follow action. So we can just put whatever effects in here we want and go to town with. So you need to hit play on these. Looks like we're pushing full on our CPU. Obviously, we could mix down, but you know, that would just be for pussies. One thing I do know that is taking up a lot of juice is our video. So I will go ahead and just close that down. Probably give us some extra cycles. But we're just about done, I think, anyway. I could, you know, just go to town with effects, honestly. That's just a thing that... yeah, you die, Avenue, you die. Yeah, I got some dub action in there. I will say a fun little trick is using a delay. You can get some nice yeah, so we'll just have that wet dry pop on every now and then. And then maybe we'll automate the and I think I'd rather keep the fade setting, and maybe we'll just automate to the repitch every now and then. There we go. Oh, very dubby. Let's. Cool. So I think we'll call it on that. On this track. I think we turned a little piece of garbage sketch into something, you know, viable. So yeah, until next time, have fun.